It was a calm night at Borrego Park in California. Blaze Bernstein had gone there to meet someone named Sam. They were supposed to hang out before Blaze returned to college after winter break. But something about this meeting felt off. None of Blaze's close friends had ever heard of Sam before, and Sam claimed they were friends, but Blaze had never mentioned him. Even stranger, Blaze hadn't told anyone that he planned to meet up with someone that night. When Blaze's parents woke up the next morning and realized he hadn't come home, they were immediately concerned. They tried to reach him, but there was no answer. As the hours passed, their concern turned into panic. Soon, it became clear that the peaceful night in the park had ended in tragedy. Blaze was missing, and it wouldn't be long before authorities discovered that this would be the last night of his life. Blaze Bernstein grew up in Orange County, California, in a loving Jewish family. His parents, Jean and Gideon, and his two brothers, Jay and Bo, knew him as someone full of energy and passion. Blaze was the type of person who always had a smile on his face. He loved music, writing, and cooking. He was quirky in the best way and had a genuine warmth that people were drawn to. At the time, Blaze was going through a period of self-discovery. At only 19 years old, he was still figuring out who he was. Like many people his age, he was navigating the pressures of young adulthood, but he seemed to be handling it well. He had studied at the Orange County School of the Arts and later enrolled at the University of Pennsylvania. Even though his heart belonged to creative writing and food, he had chosen to pursue a degree in medicine. His family always believed he was smart enough to succeed in whatever he put his mind to. At the time he went missing, Blaze was a sophomore in college. He had a bright future ahead of him and was considered by those who knew him to be full of potential. Nobody could have imagined that his life would be cut short in such a senseless and heartbreaking way. Blaze had been enjoying life, doing the things he loved and spending time with the people who meant the most to him. It was the end of 2017, during winter break, and Blaze had traveled home to California from college in Philadelphia to be with his family for the holidays. He jumped right back into the rhythm of home, cooking in the kitchen, catching up with relatives, and sharing stories. He was happy to be back, and his loved ones were just as thrilled to have him around. Everything felt right, like the kind of warm, peaceful holiday people hope for. As the break wrapped up, Blaze was preparing to head back to college. He had just celebrated the new year, and on January 2, 2018, he left his parents' house to get back into the swing of things. What no one knew at the time was that this would be the last day anyone would see him alive. At first, his parents didn't realize anything was wrong. Blaze had grown up in that neighborhood, and it wasn't unusual for him to step out for a bit, maybe to visit old friends. But as the day stretched on and turned into the next morning, his mother Jean started to feel that something wasn't right. While she was at a dentist appointment, a thought hit her. Blaze hadn't reached out at all since the night before. He had actually promised to go with her to that appointment, but he never showed up. This wasn't like Blaze. If he had a change of plans, he would have told someone. He was thoughtful like that. So when both Jean and Gideon tried calling him and got no response, worry quickly turned into fear. They rushed home and checked his room, but he wasn't there. What they did find were things Blaze would never leave behind: his wallet, his retainer, and his glasses. Jean knew her son well enough to understand that if he had gone anywhere, he would have taken those items with him. His parents started calling his friends, but no one had heard from him. It was as if he had vanished. Panic set in, and the Bernstein family reported Blaze missing to the police. In the meantime, they searched for answers themselves. They logged into Blaze's computer, hoping for any kind of clue. When they got into his Snapchat account, something unusual finally appeared: a message Blaze had sent to someone named Sam. Along with the message, Blaze had sent this person his home address. The name Sam didn't ring a bell for anyone in the family. They had never heard of him before. But based on what they saw, it looked like Sam was possibly the last person to see Blaze before he disappeared. Holding on to this lead, Blaze's parents reached out to Sam Woodward. They even recorded the conversation, later handing it over to the police in hopes that it would help crack the case. Blaze's father, Gideon, was the one who ended up speaking with Sam. According to Sam, he had picked Blaze up from the house around 11 p.m. on January 2. He claimed they drove to Borrego Park in Lake Forest, where Blaze suddenly told him he was going to meet someone else. Sam said Blaze got out of the car, walked down a poorly lit path, and never came back. He tried calling out for him but didn't hear or see anything after that. Just like that, Blaze was gone. Something about the story didn't feel right to Blaze's family. For one, they had never heard of Sam before. They asked how he even knew Blaze, and Sam responded by saying they were friends from their time at the Orange County School of the Arts. That claim didn't sit well with the detectives either, so they decided to dig a little deeper. They began reaching out to people from Blaze's past, hoping someone could shed light on this supposed friendship. Eventually, investigators got in touch with Rhea, one of Blaze's closest friends. She had known Blaze for years and was familiar with many of the people he had interacted with during high school. Rhea confirmed that while Sam had attended the same school, he and Blaze were never close. In fact, she explained that Sam was something of a loner, quiet, distant, and often described by others as strange. She said that Sam had been socially isolated and very different from Blaze, who was outgoing and warm with nearly everyone. Rhea recalled that Sam spent a lot of time alone, and when he did interact with others, it wasn't usually in a positive way. People remembered him as someone who didn't fit in. He liked to draw, but not in a playful or creative sense. Instead, his notebooks were filled with sketches of guns. He was known to hold extreme political views and often made comments that made others uncomfortable. According to those who went to school with him, Sam was the kind of person people tried to avoid. He didn't share Blaze's values or energy, and most people couldn't imagine the two even having a normal conversation, let alone being friends. None of Blaze's friends or family could understand why Sam had been in contact with him, or why Blaze would agree to meet up with someone he barely knew. It all felt random and suspicious. When you add in the strange story Sam gave about Blaze wandering off into the darkness without any warning, it raised even more questions. Sam hadn't technically broken any laws at that point, but the police had their doubts. His behavior, his background, and his version of events just didn't add up. Because of all these red flags, Sam quickly became the prime suspect in Blaze's disappearance. As the days passed, the situation became more urgent. 3 days after Blaze was reported missing, the police launched a large-scale search. They combed through the wooded areas and remote parts of the park, hoping to find any clue that might lead them to Blaze. Search efforts for Blaze intensified. Police brought in drones to scan the dense areas of Borrego Park from above. Meanwhile, thousands of missing person flyers were printed and posted all over the city. The community came together, friends, neighbors, and strangers, rallying around the Bernstein family to help in any way they could. Everyone wanted to find Blaze and bring him home safely. Detectives spoke to Sam again. He stuck to the same story he had told Blaze's parents, that Blaze walked off into the night and never came back. Despite heavy rain, officers kept searching the park, focusing on one specific area. Something about that place didn't sit right with them, as if it held the key to what happened. Then, after 8 difficult days, on January 10, 2018, one officer spotted something odd under a tree in the park. A branch lay across a patch of dirt that didn't look quite right. When investigators started digging, they didn't have to go far before they made a heartbreaking discovery: a body. It was cold, lifeless, and covered in slash wounds. It was Blaze. The sight was devastating. Gone was his familiar warmth and smile. Instead, he lay in a shallow grave in the very park where he had last been seen alive. Next to his body was a broken phone, which was quickly confirmed to be his. The news crushed his parents, who had been holding on to hope that he'd return. That hope vanished in an instant. An autopsy revealed the brutality of what had happened. Blaze had been stabbed close to 28 times. The coroner was struck not just by the number of wounds, but by the sheer violence behind them. It was clear this was no random act. It looked personal, filled with rage. The question no one could answer yet was why. What had Blaze done, if anything, to deserve such a violent end? Detectives believed they already had the person who might hold those answers: Sam Woodward. Just 2 days after Blaze's body was found, Sam was arrested. And when police began digging into his background, what they discovered was even more disturbing. Sam, who was just 20 years old at the time, was from Newport Beach, California. Sam Woodward had once been a student at the Orange County School of the Arts, just like Blaze. But his time there didn't end well. He had to be pulled out of school because of his aggressive behavior, especially toward certain students. It turned out, Sam was openly hostile toward young men who were gay. His strong homophobic views weren't just quiet opinions, they were loud, cruel, and dangerous. While Sam sat in custody, staying silent about what really happened that night in the park, investigators had no choice but to look deeper into his past. What they found was horrifying. Sam was hiding a very dark part of his life, and police believed it had everything to do with why Blaze was murdered. Sam had been involved in a hate group, a far-right extremist movement that promoted violence and hatred toward people who didn't fit their beliefs. It was more than just an online echo chamber. This group operated like a dangerous cult, recruiting young men and feeding them extreme ideas. The group started in the southern US in 2013, but it didn't stay there. It spread to other countries like the UK, Canada, Germany, and into different parts of Europe. Experts later described this group as one of the most violent hate-driven movements of the 21st century. Their goal: to push a twisted version of a new world order. They believed in tearing down the current world and replacing it with one based on their hateful ideals. And their main targets were very clear: Jewish people, and anyone in the LGBTQ+ community. Blaze, being both Jewish and openly gay, fit right into the profile of who they despised. Investigators soon learned that Sam, long seen as a quiet outcast, had turned to the internet to find his place. And unfortunately, what he found wasn't support or healing, it was hate. Online, he was introduced to a violent extremist group that welcomed his anger. There, Sam found people who shared his darkest beliefs and encouraged him to act on them. This group ran events they called hate camps, gatherings where members were taught to be violent, disruptive, and hostile. These weren't just people with strong opinions, they were training to harm others, especially those who were different from them. To this group, hurting someone because of their race, religion, or sexual orientation wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. So when members of the group found out Sam had killed Blaze Bernstein, a gay, Jewish teenager, they praised him. For them, it was a twisted kind of victory. To make it even more heartbreaking, Blaze had only recently come out as gay and had proudly embraced his Jewish heritage, living his truth openly and confidently. In the eyes of this hate group, that made him a perfect target. At this point, the detectives were convinced Sam was responsible. But then they uncovered a twist no one expected. While going through Sam's phone and personal devices, they discovered something deeply contradictory. Despite his hate-fueled beliefs, Sam had been visiting gay dating websites. He had watched hours of gay adult content. The same kind of content the hate group condemned. The same kind of life Blaze lived proudly. They also found messages between Blaze and Sam. In many of them, Sam's tone was flirtatious, even curious. This revealed a side of Sam that he clearly tried to hide, not just from the world, but from himself. It painted a clearer picture. Sam may have been deeply conflicted, unable to accept who he truly was. Seeing Blaze live his life openly and proudly, without shame, might have stirred something dark in Sam. Not just hatred, but jealousy, resentment, a storm of self-loathing turned outward. And that storm ended Blaze's life. Sam couldn't live openly as a gay man, not in that cult. If anyone there found out he was attracted to men, it wouldn't just be social rejection. It could cost him his life. Police believed that Sam had spent years trying to suppress who he really was. But when he saw Blaze, someone the same age, proud, open, and living without shame, it brought all of Sam's inner turmoil boiling to the surface. That contrast didn't inspire Sam. It enraged him. What doesn't make sense is why Sam joined the cult in the first place. If he knew deep down that he was gay, why would he ever associate with people who would hate and harm him for that? Maybe he just wanted to belong. Maybe he thought hiding inside hate would help him avoid facing the truth. But the truth doesn't go away. Sam didn't fit in with the group. Not really. The only thing he shared with them was his bitterness and anger. And when that anger reached its breaking point, Blaze, kind, joyful, innocent Blaze, became the target. Blaze never stood a chance. Eventually, Sam was charged with murder, use of a deadly weapon, and 2 hate crimes. He pleaded not guilty, even though Blaze's blood and DNA were found in Sam's car and on the knife inside Sam's house. The prosecution wasn't just trying to prove Sam killed Blaze. That was clear. The real battle was to prove why he did it. If the motive was hate, if Sam murdered Blaze because of his sexuality and religion, then this wasn't just murder. It was a hate crime. Sam's lawyers argued for voluntary manslaughter, trying to reduce the sentence and open the door for parole someday. But prosecutors were adamant. This was cold-blooded, targeted, and rooted in hate. They wanted a life sentence, without parole. But then the world stopped. COVID-19 hit, and with it came court delays, months, then years. Blaze's family was left stuck in a cycle of grief and legal limbo, reliving their son's murder over and over without any closure. They were emotionally drained. All they wanted was justice. Peace. An end to the nightmare. It took 6 long years. 6 years of waiting. 6 years of fighting. 6 years without Blaze. Finally, in April 2024, the trial began. After everything the Bernstein family had endured, the moment they had waited for had finally arrived. And the world around them had changed, too. And by the time the trial began in April 2024, the world wasn't the same anymore. The pandemic had reshaped everyday life, courtrooms were different, the pace of justice slower, the grief somehow heavier. But Sam had changed, too. When he finally appeared in court, he was almost unrecognizable. His once clean appearance was gone. His hair hung long and tangled down to his shoulders. His fingernails were overgrown, and his face was pale and withdrawn. He said little, made no eye contact. He looked like someone who had spent years hiding from the world, and himself. Some people couldn't help but draw comparisons to Charles Manson. The same wild eyes, the same disturbing silence, and disturbingly, that comparison wasn't lost on the courtroom. Charles Manson, a man who led others into acts of hate and violence, was actually admired by the extremist group Sam was part of. That chilling connection said more than Sam ever could. Once the trial began, the prosecution laid out their case with precision and force. They brought forward every detail. Sam's membership in the violent hate group, his history of suppressing his own sexuality, his interactions with Blaze, and the chilling fact that he was the last known person to see Blaze alive. Their argument was deeply rooted in motive. Sam was not just a young man harboring confusion, he was a product of hate, taught to see difference as danger. The prosecution painted a clear picture. Sam was emotionally tormented by his attraction to men, and when he saw Blaze, confident, joyful, unapologetically gay and Jewish, it was too much. Sam couldn't understand how someone like Blaze could live freely while he felt trapped. And so, filled with rage, self-loathing, and indoctrinated hate, Sam lashed out. Blaze paid the price for simply existing as himself. The prosecution argued that Sam had planned Blaze's murder well in advance. He had brought the murder weapon with him that night, January 2, and lured Blaze to Borrego Park under false pretenses. It was not a crime of passion, they said. It was premeditated. But then the defense took a surprising and deeply unsettling turn. They painted Sam as a confused, mentally unstable young man with no real grasp of social boundaries or proper emotional processing. According to them, Sam didn't go to that park with murder in mind, he was simply overwhelmed. Then they went further. The defense claimed that Blaze himself provoked the incident. They alleged that Sam had been under the influence of illicit substances that night, feeling disoriented and paranoid. In this hazy state, they claimed, Blaze made advances toward him, and even began filming Sam on his phone. According to their narrative, Blaze was flirtatious and forward, and when Sam rejected him, Blaze threatened to share the footage and, out, Sam to others. This was critical to the defense's argument. They claimed that Sam, raised in a conservative Catholic home and terrified of being exposed, panicked. That he saw no way out. That, cornered by fear and shame, he acted irrationally. He reached for the retractable pocket knife he always carried, something he said he had since his Boy Scout days, and attacked. To the prosecution, however, this defense strategy was a desperate attempt to shift blame onto the victim. They reminded the jury that Sam was part of a hate-fueled extremist group, that he had messaged Blaze flirtatiously before that night, and that he had gone to the park prepared, with a weapon and a plan. Regardless of what may have happened in those final moments, one truth remained: Blaze Bernstein was unarmed, unaware, and undeserving of what happened to him. And no theory could justify the brutal, calculated act that took his life. Sam didn't stop. He continued stabbing Blaze until there was no more resistance, until the life had drained from Blaze Bernstein's body. For Blaze's family, hearing this in court was unbearable. Not only had they lost their son in the most brutal, senseless way imaginable, but now, he was being blamed for his own murder. The defense's attempt to cast Blaze as the instigator left the courtroom in stunned silence. The pain in Gideon and Jean Bernstein's faces said it all. Their son was being dehumanized in death to protect his killer. But the facts didn't back Sam's story. No compromising photo or video of Sam was ever found on Blaze's phone. No evidence suggested that Blaze tried to expose him or record anything inappropriate. It became painfully clear, Sam had fabricated this version of events. He was trying to justify the unjustifiable. Refusing to admit that he had internal conflicts about his own identity, he redirected the turmoil onto someone who embodied what he feared in himself. By July 2024, the case had reached its most crucial moment, the verdict. Was this a hate-fueled execution, or would the jury believe Sam's story and convict him of a lesser crime? After careful deliberation, the jury returned with their decision. Sam Woodward was found guilty of the first-degree murder of Blaze Bernstein, and the crime was officially classified as a hate crime. Justice, at last, had a name. In November 2024, 4 months later, Sam was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But Blaze's story didn't end in that courtroom. What happened to him sparked something much bigger, a movement. His parents, Gideon and Jean, refused to let their son's legacy be defined by violence or hatred. Out of their immense grief, they created Blaze It Forward, a kindness initiative aimed at promoting inclusivity, compassion, and hope for LGBTQ+ youth and marginalized individuals. Borrego Park, the once quiet, wooded place where Blaze's life ended, is now a place of remembrance and healing. Hundreds of colorful painted stones rest under the trees, each one inscribed with loving messages, affirmations, and tributes to a young man who deserved so much more. Blaze Bernstein's light may have been stolen, but his spirit continues to shine, through every act of kindness done in his name. The Bernstein family remains deeply grateful for the outpouring of love and support they've received from complete strangers throughout these painful and drawn-out years. In their eyes, Blaze is remembered exactly as he should be, for his compassion, for his smile, and for the way he lit up the lives of those around him. Though Blaze's life was brutally cut short, his legacy continues, in every act of kindness, in every spark of warmth, and in every message of love shared in his name. Blaze It Forward is not just a movement. It is a testimony to the fact that love, when amplified, can drown out hate. His parents hold firm to a belief that resonates beyond tragedy: no one should ever be punished or judged for who they love. Healing is a lifelong journey. Some days, Blaze's memory brings a smile. Other days, the grief resurfaces. But one truth remains. Disagreements, over values, beliefs, or lifestyles, do not and will never justify violence. Humanity has always been divided over ideologies, but true strength lies in choosing empathy over ego. You don't have to agree with someone to coexist with them. We were all put on this earth to live, learn, and love in our own ways. The best life, one lived with mutual respect. Not every opinion must be shared. Not every choice must be understood. But everyone deserves the right to exist freely. Sparkle, so let Blaze's story be a reminder that love is louder than hate, that kindness leaves a legacy, and that justice, no matter how long it takes, matters. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. A very special thank you goes out to our amazing channel members, Heather Montague and Jennifer Huckleby, for their continued support. Your backing helps us continue sharing these important stories that honor victims, shed light on injustice, and inspire awareness and change. If you'd like early access to our stories and want to support the channel, hit the join button or check out the link in the description. And hey, just a heads up, True Crime Stories t-shirts are now available. If you'd like to support the channel and rock some exclusive merch, check out the link down in the description. If this case struck a chord with you, be sure to check out another powerful story I recently covered. It's one you won't forget. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe. It's completely free, and it's the easiest way to stay up to date with all my future videos. Balance scale disclaimer. This video is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It covers real events and includes sensitive content that may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. All parties mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This content is based on publicly available sources and reporting.